actually banked on a verdict. And I told my team, I'm going to book you guys for a round table because we will have a verdict to talk about on this Saturday show. So, Catherine, I'm going to start with you. You and Jeremy have become staples for our MSNBC viewers, giving us incredible analysis and insight. I'm not going to ask you what your thoughts are because I think we've already heard a lot about it. Let's get down to the brass tacks because I think a lot of people want to know what are the next steps. So, Catherine, we've mentioned before a PSI. Let's talk in even more detail about that pre-sentence investigation report that's going to be done for the 45th president of the United States.
It's done for every defendant, so he's not being targeted. It's not a kangaroo court. So the probation department, that's how they do it in New York City, will assign probably a very high-level probation officer to interview Mr. Trump and prepare a report. And it's going to be about the case. It's going to be about his background, economic status, educational status, and whatever else the judge wants in that report. We'll prepare that report, give it to the defense, give it to the prosecutor, give it to the court, the judge. It will be confidential, so reporters will not be able to go into the court file and pull it out. And the judge will base his decision not just on that. It'll be on what the prosecutor says, they're going to file a sentencing memo. The defense will file a sentencing memo. This will all be due way before the sentencing date in July. And then on that date of sentencing, the judge will sentence. Now, also in between that, Todd Blanche has said he's going to file motions. The only motion I can think he could file, which is one is allowed, a motion to set aside the verdict. So he will file, assuming he's going to file that motion in writing, the prosecution will have a chance to respond to that. Sometimes that delays the sentencing. I don't think it will in this case because the judge is not. Sometimes it's delayed because the judge can't make a decision. This judge can make a decision, so he's going to make the decision on that motion to set aside the verdict before the sentencing date.
Jeremy, I want to focus on something that Catherine just said. Trump's going to be interviewed by this probation officer for this report, and he's going to be asked about the case. And what's interesting is he quadrupled down all the time, even yesterday in that crazy presser that he had, about his denial. Now, listen, everybody's entitled to a defense, and everybody's entitled to go to trial, which is what he did. But what does it say, though, when it comes to the potential for him getting dinged on sentencing, that he shows no remorse? Because he's going to tell this PO, I did nothing wrong, this is a witch hunt, et cetera, et cetera.
It's a hazard that he's walking into knowingly, intentionally. Whether it was a plea of guilty or a conviction after trial, the same requirement stands. You meet with this probation officer and you give what your thoughts are, you share your information, but your thoughts are not, I didn't do anything wrong, because if you took that plea and you voluntarily did so, you've admitted to it in court. And if you've been convicted, it's the same thing because a jury of your peers have found you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So if you turn around and you say, no, I didn't do this is a lie, it's a witch hunt, or even if you say it more mildly, when that now goes before the judge is going to ding you, proverbially bop you on the head and say, there's accountability. And if you don't want to give it, you don't want to take it, I'm the one who's going to distribute it to it. And it's going to be a heavier hand than it would have been if you would have accepted responsibility. It's the same thing if it's a white-collar case, a sex crimes case, a gun violent case. This is no different, to Catherine's point, than any other person in that courtroom or any courtroom in New York State.
And say it louder for the cheap seats in the back for the Republicans to say it is otherwise. Hugo, I do want to take the timetable back for just a hot second to Thursday. You were actually in the courtroom when the verdict was read. I want our viewers to understand how Trump reacted. I mean, we were getting a lot of real-time updates for those of us that weren't inside the courtroom, but how did he react visibly? What did he look like when the verdict was read?
I think he looked miserable, and it's really all I can say. I've seen Trump at some of his worst moments legally now. I was there when he was indicted in the classified documents case. I was there when he was indicted in this case. I was there when he was indicted for the federal January 6th case. And this is the worst I have seen him ever. You know, he does the usual scowl, his brow kind of furrows, he frowns, he kind of sat back in his chair, he kind of shaking his head when the guilty counts were read out at the start. And then there were so many that he stopped shaking his head because it went on and on and on.
Each and every 34.
And what was so interesting was how different the mood was in the courtroom just 30 minutes before. I mean, just to kind of run you back through how this all played out on Thursday.
Yeah.
When the parties came back into the room, the expectation was that there would be no verdict today. And the judge even told the parties, like, look, you know, I'm going to send the jury home at 4:30. This was like 4:15.
Yeah.
And they looked very happy. You know, Todd Blanche was joking and giggling with Trump. And you know, at one point, he was laughing so hard, Todd Blanche, that he kind of knocked forward. And you know, I thought he was going to smack his head on the table. I mean, it was just kind of comical. And then 5 minutes later, Judge Merchan says, we've got a note. We've got a note from the jury, and they have a verdict. And the sense and mood in the courtroom just changed. It was like, it really was like an icebox, right? Trump has been saying for weeks it's like an icebox. It got really warm. And then that was the moment when the mood shifted in such a way that Trump's smile disappeared. And 30 minutes later, when the jury came back in, I think Trump was bracing himself. I think he knew that it was going to be a guilty verdict. I mean, him and his lawyers certainly had talked about this in the intervening period, according to our reporting. And I think when it came, it kind of hit him, the gravity of the moment. And it was just nothing I've ever seen before.
You know, Molly, there's been a lot of discussion about the gag order, and there's been a lot of legal discussion about whether or not his continued violation of the gag order will actually hurt him at the sentencing, because it's defiance of an order. And part of sentencing includes a punitive component of punishing you for your criminal conduct and a deterrent component, which is to prevent you from reoffending as the defendant and to actually discourage others from violating the law. In this instance, though, we talked a lot about the fact that Trump was silenced, appropriately so, because of this gag order. And yet yesterday we saw him go out and do this crazy presser where he didn't take any questions, which was such a tease, right? You want to bring media in to talk about this, but you don't give them a chance to ask you questions. But it's okay, because if you actually read the transcript and the verbatim of what he said, it was nuts. Yeah. It was crazy. But how does the import of a pending sentencing play into how it's perceived politically by the rest of the world?
Well, you can see, again, this whole thing where Trump thinks being a defendant actually helps his candidacy. And that's clearly just like getting high on your own supply. Like, there's no way in which being a criminal defendant helps your candidacy. And one of the things we see with him is he's been lying about this gag order, right? He'll say, for example, he said, I wanted to testify, but I can't testify because of the gag order. That's not true. And the judge even had to say that wasn't true. And then he had these surrogates try to get around the gag order. You had Republican electeds, even the Speaker of the House, which is like a sort of hallowed job in leadership, came out and said he can't talk about the judge's daughter. And remember, this gag order is not some crazy gag order. It's really like, you can't malign the family of the judge. You can't malign the family of Alvin Bragg. I mean, these are not, it's not saying you can't talk about the case. And so I do think he's tried to use the gag order to help him, just like with everything else.